reading my slides for this. Does anyone here know how the legislative process actually works?
It should pass through the Parliament, lower house, and then upper house.
It does mostly, well, in the federal parliament and in most other parliaments. Yeah, could we have another laptop? Because my laptop won't connect to this, it's only got HDMI out.
All right. You're right, Mike.
My laptop is too modern for their technology. Yeah, we have, in the ACT, which is what the Australian ACT Youth Parliament is modelled on, we only have one house, which is a bit odd. The only other parliament in Australia to have one house is Queensland. Northern Territory sort of, but I don't count it as a real parliament. We have, in the ACT, possibly the oddest parliament in Australia, because we only have 5 ministers. That's constitutionally mandated. We can only have 5 people holding portfolios. So we have one woman who holds arts, youth, ageing, tourism, local government, regional government, and the list goes on. But the main purpose of the Youth Parliament is to, and this time I'm not going to use a permanent marker, is to emulate their process so that they can understand what young people care about. We start with, yes, this is a whiteboard marker. Yes. We start with getting young people together. So we recruit 25 young people, bring them all into the same room, then we divide them into committees on areas they're interested in. For instance, this year we have arts, education, environment, health, and something else, which I can never remember. From there, they develop bills, and they'll start doing that actually on May the 26th this year, and you can all still get involved. Applications are still open. On May the 26th, we get them all into a room, we teach them how to write bills, how legislation is actually written formally like it is in the Parliament, and then we also give them training on various other topics, most notably leadership, interview technique, media technique, ways to interact with politicians, because conversations with them can be quite intimidating, and especially if you're talking to the Speaker of the House and then suddenly the Chief Minister comes along and you have absolutely no idea how to react. And then we teach them how not only to talk to politicians, but to sell to politicians, which is the big thing. We teach them how to take the ideas that they have created and pass through the House of Debate, which is the Legislative Assembly in this case, which we will be sitting in for a week in July, and take those ideas and really get government, get industry, get people in the community to listen to them. Now I will get up my presentation, because I can't remember where I go from here. This has the presentation. Does anyone have any questions about that legislative process? I'm fairly sure I missed something. No?
You said the application is still open for hiring the 25?
People from the ages of 15 to 25. You can apply online at ypact.org. We have, it's open until May the 20th, I think, which is in 2 days, so you don't have very long. And before then, hopefully, we'll see a few of your names pop up on my laptop screen with all your enrollment details. We spend a week in July, between the 26th, which is our training day this month, and July we spend time writing bills, and then in July we actually go into the Legislative Assembly, spend a week there living at the youth hostel over the road, which is actually quite nice, eating excellent food from the Hermitage restaurant, which we get very cheap. And in the Youth Parliament debating from the 9th to the 13th of July. Then after that, I built an advocacy team from the best people among the 25 young people who were in the Legislative Assembly with us, and a couple of our Taskforce members who my advocacy coordinator has actually run away, he's not here today, which is kind of depressing. But with them, we go out and, as I was saying, really sell our bills. Excellent. I love PowerPoint. Well, I hate PowerPoint, but I love the new one because it allows you to do pretty things really easily. Okay, we talked about that. Oh, might as well talk about events. During the Youth Parliament, we have a few events. We have a question and answer session on Wednesday night, which has 5 members of the Legislative Assembly there, where you can directly ping questions at them and put them in nasty situations. Plus, it has a union representative and a representative from the Australian Industry Group. Hopefully, we'll get Heather Ridd out this time because she is always good fun. And we try and part of the program. Get to this slide in a second. Part of the program is buddying young people with MPs so that the MPs have constant flow of information as to what young people care about. And if Giles here, he could talk more about that because he knows about that side of things. Yes, in the lead-up phase, which I was talking about between May and July, we have lots of meetings, we write bills, and we train people. Sitting, blah, 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 advocacy, blah, blah, blah. Leadership training advice. Yeah, these are the 3 core motivations of our program, and I'll get off our program soon enough. We want to give young people skills in leadership, we want to give them the ability to teach other young people, and we want to give them a voice in the community. I'll skip through those because we kind of went through them. The case studies that come out of our program are pretty amazing. For instance, in Victoria and Queensland, Youth Parliament passed legislation before the Ordinary Parliament about homosexual rights and LGBT rights. Queensland is now the most progressive state, thanks to Youth Parliament. It has the closest to gay marriage in Australia. South Australia, a couple of different environmental policies, including shifting over from fossil fuel-based energy to, well, much faster anyway, to renewable energy, and also a plastic bag levy, so they have to pay 15 cents for every plastic bag they use, which is slightly more than here. Western Australia, we had law reform, so they had, well, it's a bit of problematic in WA because you have a Liberal government, and the Liberal government there is kind of obsessed with harsher penalties. But before the Liberal government came in, we reduced mandatory minimums, if you know what those are. It means that people who commit minor crimes no longer have to go to jail. Tasmania, forestry management. Have any of you been to Tasmania? Okay, you know they have massive forests, massive old growth forests. And there's a war going on between the Greens and the loggers. The Tasmanian Youth Parliament was the impetus for the deal which they put together, which brought together those 2 parties and got them to work out a peace treaty. In terms of personal stories, we had a young Aboriginal girl called Lena come to the Western Australian Youth Parliament. That's where I'm originally from. And she's pretty amazing, really. She came to the Youth Parliament not knowing anything at all. She had no idea how to help her community, which was in strife. She was, there was terrible rates of domestic abuse, terrible rates of drinking, underage violence, etc., etc. She went back there after the Youth Parliament, and expressly because of the skills she gained at Youth Parliament, and got a police officer, got the community declared dry, halved the rates of domestic assault in 2 years, and formed a women's group to protect the rights of women and young people in that community. And she is a tremendous person. Chris did similar, but he didn't do it in Australia. He went over to Papua New Guinea and set up a aid organisation over there. And he's originally from the Northern Territory. We have innovative programs like bringing together a press gallery, so we have the UC Press Club involved this time around. They have a treasury program which prepares you to go into the finance or treasury department, etc., etc. And the National Indigenous Youth Parliament was run for the first time this year. But now, to get on to the more workshopy kind of things. We've run, in the past, the YMCA has never run, but there has been run in the past a National Youth Parliament. And that was run from 1939 to 1943. That's why the pictures look so old. They passed some pretty remarkable bills, and this was during wartime, during the Second World War. And they included things like, I don't know, young people, but entirely making the country socialist, and various other things. At present, there is only one National Youth Parliament, and that is the Indigenous Youth Parliament. What I'd like to get from you guys today is ideas about how to make something in the future, and what you think could happen in the future regarding youth representation in Australia. We have a few ideas, but there's lots of problems. Lots of bickering, because there's, how many of you know the difference between the Senate and the House of Representatives in terms of, okay? Can someone tell me?
Because when you pass a bill, it just goes to the Senate first?
does that. Do people know the difference between how people are selected for the House of Representatives and the Senate, and how they're made up?
The House of Representatives, each member has to be elected by their local area, and Senate, I think, are chosen by the party.
They're chosen by their state. We have in Australia 6 states. They each get 6 members. Oh, well, they actually get 12, but they elected half election cycles, which is a bit complicated. They also have a few members from the territories. At the moment, it's 2, and they really don't do very much. They're Kate Lundy and Gary Humphreys, if you know who they are from the ACT. The problem with establishing a national youth parliament is that New South Wales and Victoria both want a House of Representatives model, which means they get many more members. And everywhere else wants a Senate model because that would be equal. And that's caused a lot of problems in the past. But what I want to talk about is how we can overcome those and what else we can do. We've been working with Google and with BallotBin, who are a voting kind of company that provides free voting software, in order to see if we can get every young person in Australia to vote in youth parliament elections. And that's over, sorry, I have to do the calculations, but the actual figure. It's easily over 1 million people under 25, which is, sorry, 5 million people under 25, yes. Sorry, brain not good. But yes, we want to get them together and actually to give the youth parliament legitimacy through voting. And we don't know how that'll work, whether it'll be preferential, whether it'll be proportional, there are lots of different models. But what I want to hear from you guys is whether you think this can work, and what you think, and how you think it could work. Something to get young people involved in politics and give them skills and create a voice for youth in the community. Any ideas?
Does this idea work at the university level at first? Does it work at the university level? So is there any...
It doesn't work at the university level. It works on a territory and state level at the moment. There are similar things in universities, like the Model UN runs here, and there's also in WA, at UWA, there's an arts mock parliament and union parliaments and things. But they only run for a very short period, 1 day, 2 days. We run for a full week, and with this National Youth Parliament, that'd be representatives for a full year. Any other thoughts or questions about that?
Probably a lot of marketing to do, like to get people to vote on a scale like that.
Yeah.
It's not compulsory. Well, I don't know if we're going to make it compulsory.
Well, one of the thoughts I had about that personally, which I've never advanced to anyone else because they would say you're crazy for trying to get involved with state government departments, is getting the education department to run programs in high schools where people had to vote if they were over the age of 15. But yes, that will take a lot of work. Though we do have national curriculum now, which may make that a bit more simple. Anyone else with any ideas about that? At the moment, people can only vote at age 18. For the youth parliament, minimum age would be, I don't know, possibly 10. Well, this brings up an interesting philosophical question. I'm going to go into my lecture in a moment. Why is there an age line? Why is age a useful determiner of capacity to do anything? Anyone?
Because there's an assumed level of maturity that comes with it.
Do you know people over the age of 18 who shouldn't be allowed to vote?
Absolutely.
Do you know people under the age of 18 who should be allowed to vote?
I suppose, yeah.
The age line is really just terribly arbitrary. It's something that has, for years, served solely to disenfranchise young people, to make them seem like second-class citizens. And that's one of the reasons youth parliament exists, to give us a voice, to give us capacity to work within the system and actually affect real change, because we're the people who will be affected by decisions that people are making now. There are 50, 60, 70-year-olds in Parliament who will be dead before they see the outcome of any decision they make. Yet, for instance, on climate change, and I know this isn't a popular topic, but on climate change, decisions needed to have been made 10 years ago, but they weren't because it wasn't in the interests of old people, though it was in the interests of young people, and that was clearly demonstrated in the polls. If we had young people voting, we would already have equal rights for homosexual people, we would already have action on climate change, we would already have a completely renewable energy system. The problem with allowing people to get away with this age restriction is that it makes young people much less powerful. What we need to do, or well, a crazy idea that I had that I put forward in philosophy lectures and tutorials is that we give everybody a capacity test. We make people take a test each year, maybe on their birthday, to see whether they actually have the intelligence, foresight, and wisdom to vote, to drink, to drive, those kind of things. And if, say, a 40-year-old suddenly gets hit by a bus, they shouldn't be allowed to vote because they're brain damaged and they don't have the capacity anymore. And you can have particularly intelligent 4-year-olds who are able to vote. But that's completely off the topic.
Just on that point, doesn't that also make a certain degree, or certain part of society, second-class citizens, in the same way the age one does?
Yes, but ours is less arbitrary. Well, mine is less arbitrary anyway.
Yeah.
And there are some things that you definitely need the capacity to give consent for, like sex, drinking. Anyway, that's the Youth Parliament, the National Youth Parliament idea. There are also a few other ideas that have been floated around, and primarily by, we have a national body called the Council of Australian Youth Parliaments, and we also have the National Union of Students, which is crap, but I'm not allowed to say that. The National Secondary Students Association is an idea that's come around, and that is that we get every high school student in Australia into an organisation and get that organisation to lobby for their interests. Because there are 400,000 high school students in WA, there are 350,000 high school students in South Australia. Put these people together, get them out on the streets in the march, and you have a ridiculously successful media event. You have people lining the streets from, say, let's go from Parliament House all the way through Civic, through ANU, down University Avenue. If you got every high school student in the world, in Australia into Canberra, you would fill up the capital city, which is something that's never happened before. I want to talk about, or I want to hear your ideas about whether you think this is a useful thing to do, and if so, how would it work? Anyone? No? Okay. We actually have a secondary students association in Western Australia at the moment. It's not doing very much because they haven't been able to hold elections because the education department doesn't like them. But hopefully in the next 5 or 6 years they will get around to doing something. There's also the National Union of Students, which is mostly the tertiary students body, and it doesn't do anything at all, primarily because of its structure. Does anyone know about the NUS? Okay. The NUS is a body run primarily by representatives of universities, and they are elected generally at Guild or Student Association elections. And if you go to ANU or UC, you'll know that the elections held here are kind of, they're very hotly contested, but you never know anything about the candidates. You might see their faces on lots of posters around the university. When they get elected to NUS, they go to a conference at the end of the year. They elect an executive from that conference. And the problem is there are many, many representatives, and they all form factions, and they're all politically aligned. So they're all part of either the Labour Party or the Liberal Party or the Greens, and they're in factions in those parties. And that means that you never get anything done, and there's a lot of corruption. Well, I'm not going to say that, right? What I'd like to see, and what I think our organisation would like to see, is something that really the YMCA can get involved with, can engage with, because we feel that there is a pressing need for something new, something to give university students a real voice and not this political hack-filled sewer that, I'm not allowed to say that, sorry, that kind of pervades the university. And that's all about leadership for young people and a real voice and coordinating at a local level. Well, I'll start again. For instance, say the Save the School Music campaign, which I was talking about earlier. That there is also in Sydney and Melbourne, there are institutions facing cuts there. There's the Melbourne Conservatorium and the Sydney Conservatorium. If we could have had a national body that would have allowed us to coordinate a national campaign for that, to save those institutions, then there would definitely have been much less damage done. A similar thing on climate change. We had to create an entirely new organisation called the Australian Youth Climate Coalition, which might be represented here today, I don't know. Simply to deal with the issue of climate change because the National Union of Students wasn't doing anything at all. It serves more as a CV lining area, padding institution than anything of any real value to anyone. So we want to find out a new way to engage students at the tertiary level and a secondary level in the political process. So what do you guys care about? What do you think about that? What issues are important to you?
Climate change.
Okay. Why?
Well, mostly because we're going to be the ones who have to deal with it later down the track. It's not dealt with now.
Okay. I'm going to write over my thing. Climate change. What would you do about it? That sounds pretty horrible. What would you do about it?
Specifically or generally?
What measures would you implement in Australia? Because we can't go all around yet.
You want to have a reduction in emissions, possibly.
How?
Incentives for more sustainable.
Positive or negative incentives?
Positives.
Okay, positive incentives. Okay, anyone else? What does anyone else care about?
Poverty?
Poverty. How do you fix it?
Education.
Education as an issue or as fixing poverty?
Both, but it's fixing poverty.
Okay, can I give you a hint on poverty? Each year the UN releases a report which says that you can cure, and not merely cure, but also educate everyone in Africa, in third world countries in Africa, for about $80 to $120 billion. Anyone else? Education as an issue. What about education as an issue?
What part of education?
Hmm?
What part of education has an issue? You know?
Yeah. What about education? What would you do?
Yeah. Science teacher at school.
What would you do for them?
Enhancing their skills.
Science, educating science educators properly. Okay. Anyone else?
Urbanization?
Urbanization. Okay. What about urbanization?
Well, population transfer from rural to urban.
Okay, you think it's a bad thing or a good thing?
I think it's an issue, it's a fact that we have to face. It's no matter if you want to stop it or not, it's going towards this trend. And it has caused a lot of influence on the environment, social, and well, basically there are all sorts of issues involved with urbanization and
Sure.
infrastructure and everything. We need to think about how are we going to accommodate that much population in
Can I call it
cities.
changing our cities? Can I have two more, but I want them to be really controversial? Ridiculously controversial.
Peak oil.
Peak oil? Okay, so what we do about peak oil?
Well, all we really do is try to reduce our dependence on
Okay, so reducing our dependence on oil through
more sustainable energy sources.
You guys are all university students. You're so conservative about your approaches to things. When I go into high schools, I get euthanasia. What's the problem? Mandatory euthanasia for the over 60s. I get gay marriage. I get let's fix climate change by ensuring that we, in the next 3 years, use no fossil fuel. So we ban within 20 we ban within 20 kilometers of the CBD cars. These kind of things. Things that really spark controversy, spark debate, because when you have debate, you tend to come up with much better ideas, and you also tend to come up with, at the end of the debate, either two completely contrasting positions that will never give in to each other, and then one of them will generally die, because that's how dialogue goes. Or you get a consensus. And if you get a consensus, you can use that to build a lobbying strategy. So what I'm going to do is take a few of these and turn them into topics. Let's see if I can use this laptop. Actually, never mind. I can just turn them into topics right now. I want people who agree with, mandatory,
Can we add one, please?
Yes, definitely.
Nuclear power.
Okay, in favour or against?
Favour.
Can I also add something as well?
Sure.
I think that prostitution should be legalized in some countries.
Legalising prostitution. Good one. Like it. Okay. Anyone else? Sorry, I have terrible handwriting. We're going to do 3, I think. Climate change. The first one on climate change will have, we'll do one issue on climate change, and that will be that we institute a, that's a good one, a $5 a tonne carbon tax. A proper carbon tax, not like the crummy one we have at the moment. We'll do nuclear power in favour of, and legalising prostitution, both of those are good. Pickles kind of carbon tax as well. And proper education. Proper science education. Okay, science education. Then we take all money from sport funding in Australia, from the federal government and the local governments, and put it into science education. Okay, first one, I want people who agree with nuclear power being implemented in Australia on the left of the room, and people who disagree on the right. Please.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And can we have a clear split between the middle? And there's. Do you disagree or?
Yeah.
Which one?
Separated nuclear power.
Yep. So you all agree? Are you agree or disagree? Okay. Can you come down the front? Sorry. Okay. Now I want you guys to act like high school kids again. I love it. I want you guys on the right to argue for nuclear power in Australia, and you guys on the left to argue against. And just shout out whatever you think.
Argue.
More efficiency.
But you're arguing against nuclear power.
Wait.
And you guys are arguing for.
Oh.
Yeah.
Wait, I think so.
This is a.
Oh wait, it's an exercise, right?
Yeah, an exercise. So you guys are in favour, you guys are against. Nuclear power is cheap, it's easy to build, it doesn't cost, well, it's good for the environment. Come on. What's wrong with it? It's good for our economy, we've got plenty of nuclear fuel. Cheaper power. Cheaper power? Yeah. Come on against, guys.
Weapons, misuse.
Okay, so you think that we're gonna, not properly treat our nuclear waste? We'll stick it underground. It'll be fine. Nuclear reactors. We've got one in Lucas Heights. It's fine.
Chernobyl.
Accidents, yeah, Chernobyl.
Okay, I'm just gonna swap sides now. You guys.
Chernobyl was like a long time ago. We've got like better technology now. So I don't think it's going to be a chance that, nuclear reactor's going to blow up.
But it doesn't rule out the possibility that if a catastrophic nuclear accident were to happen, it would be disastrous.
And the effects of it still hurt today.
Yes.
Will be thousands of people. Thousands.
Nuclear power is actually less economically efficient. It costs more to build than it would to if we invested properly in solar and renewable power of various different kinds, especially wave and tidal power in Australia.
Yeah.
So, come on, you put yourself in the shoes of rabid high school students. Yeah.
In the long term, if we're working on the technology, it's gonna be highly likely that we will make it like more efficient, and it might actually be more, better than solar power. There's also the possibility.
Nuclear fuel is finite. You're going to run out. It's like we face exactly the same problems as we do with big oil. Anyone else?
Do we have to argue against it? Can we argue?
You have to argue against.
It's an alternative to the current energy dilemmas that we face.
Are you arguing for or against? Okay, I think we've exhausted nuclear power. It's not quite controversial enough. We'll go to legalizing prostitution, which is much more controversial. People in favour on the right, people against on the left.
I thought it was already legalized.
No, in Australia it is, but in some countries still.
In some countries.
Right now it's against. Right now.
That's good. Okay, let the debate commence. You guys are in favour, you guys are against.
Freedom of speech.
Freedom of speech.
If you're going to legalise gay marriage and say that it's alright, that sort of thing, I don't see how you can discriminate against another in some ways, similar issue.
Okay, but don't talk to me, talk to them. They're your enemies.
So are we favouring on this side?
You guys are in favour and they're against.
So I think it should be legalized mainly because I think everybody have that needs, especially men and working women. And because in my country, I'm from Vietnam, because we don't have that law that legalize it, there's a lot of cases of rapes and even like people cheating on their wives and their husband. And I think that's why it should be legalized. It could actually minimize a lot of other social problems.
I see.
Yeah.
But even if you legalize prostitution, right, that doesn't diminish the idea that someone can cheat on their spouses, right? Because if you legalize prostitution, it means people still have
So
an
they don't have
avenue
to get
to.
married. They can just go to it and satisfy whatever they need. That's what I think. Yes.
And also the incentive to do something illegal is removed in the situation.
I think it's good because you can reduce the disease spread. Because when they legalize, they will have like a medical checkup and stuff, and this will run like government rather than just spread some AIDS.
But surely you can never tell whether the prostitute is truly giving consent.
Just like in Singapore, is legalized, and those prostitutes they have to go back to the government and have their medical checkup each year. I think just to renew their license so that they can continue to become a prostitute. And prostitute is just a job.
But I mean, how can you tell that a prostitute hasn't been coerced into prostitution? How can you tell that they're not being run by a pimp who beats them if they don't go out in the street? How can you tell? Surely the risks of the profession are too great.
I think we can give them a license.
That's what we legalize, because when we legalize it, it's under a law. So you are doing, it's like a business or something. You do it, you have you have every right, you have to renew it. So when you make it a legalized a job or a factor, you have to follow certain things in order to do it. It's under the spotlight, it's under the media, it's always into some pressure, influence that they have to make it up to the standard. Like if it's not there, all of them are doing, like if you see Criminal Minds or NCIS, it's there out there. People are there in a psychopath wise or something. So I think when they do some stuff like this, it's not like they are doing under the shadow all the time hidden. People wouldn't know what is happening. The women are not know what is happening. Like if you take not exactly Australia, but if you take Southeast Asian country, the women are not very empowered to know what's happening out in the world, real world.
But surely prostitution will always be underground. Surely that it will always be considered shameful in many countries, and it will be hard to regulate police for any government. And thus we can never truly eliminate the risks and dangers.
What do you mean by shameful?
Well, in Australia, even in Australia, which is considered a modern liberal country, we have the taboo against sex and especially against prostitution. It's considered to be kind of dirty to go and see a prostitute, and that's why nobody knows what they are. That's why they're in, well, except in fishery.
Discrimination, because I don't know, when there is supply, there is demand.
I think that the main issue in ACT was the place. So the island shouldn't be in the city, it should be always out of the city, like Fishhook. And now they are trying to do it in the city. So this is the main issue, not the legalization itself. Yeah.
Okay.
But in Melbourne, you have them in the main CBD.
Yeah, we do have red light districts in other cities.
To Sydney, they have massage parlours in just about every corner, everywhere. How can you ignore it? They've got all these lights flashing. It's an invite. It is. It's an invite.
Okay. I think that's probably, well, we definitely haven't exhausted the topic, but we might move on to one more. And yes, okay. Taking away all funding from sport and giving it to science education, which is probably, it's at least $500 million.
Why from sport? Why not from mining? Why from sport?
Because sport can sustain itself. mining needs, surely it needs tax benefit and relief and so forth to stay on shore. You don't want capital flight. Okay, so people in favour of stripping money from sport and giving to science education on the left, people against on the right. I love this exercise. I get to make people move around. It's great. Okay, people on the left. Where do the sides split? Who's what? Okay, good. So you guys are against? You guys are in favour? Yes. Okay, you guys are in favour, you guys are against.
No, we are in favor.
But now you're against.
Oh, okay.
Against taking the money from sport.
So we're against it.
You guys are against, you guys are in favour.
Yeah.
Sport provides a lot of social environment for young people.
So does school.
But it's really constructive outlet for things that they wouldn't otherwise be able to get out of the school
So
environment.
we are doing well in sport, so it would be better to strengthen our achievement in sport rather than building from the beginning in science.
But surely we want to become the world's knowledge nation. We want to be able to sell our investment and our ideas. You can't really sell sport. You just send your sporting teams away for free.
Mm.
You can't force people to study science though.
Yes, you can. Blow things up.
Still, everybody's going to be as excited about that as sport. Some people just aren't passionate about it. Yeah, I've seen people who do blow things up and they're like, oh yeah, that's cool, but I still want to go and keep playing.
You seen a Michael Cesium dropped into a dam?
That's very green.
But the problem with most people don't enjoy science, surely it's bad educators. That's why we need the investment.
I think investing in science sports, I think only limited to some very talented individuals. Like if they're extremely athletic and they're good at it, then they can make money of it, but not everyone can do that.
I think if you're investing in sports at the school level, you're actually educating on health,
Yeah,
right?
you're
Which
only
is very
raising their
essential
health.
for good studies. So you can't take away all the money from us. You know, when you don't have a healthy body, you can't study
But the
optimally.
problem is that you see all these Asian countries and people being so smart, and not all of us actually exercise that much.
Well, honestly, in Asian countries, they might be really smart, but
Yeah.
that's pretty much all they can do. They can read a science textbook, and they can't cook their own dinner.
But
Yeah,
We're not taking funding away from domestic
That does
education.
yeah, very efficient economy to a certain extent by having like smart people, and obviously learning a skill such as science or maths makes you brain think in a certain way, which is advantageous to certain things you do in your life, as opposed to the fact that sport is more physical, which obviously has its own positives to it, but doesn't make you think or reach out in the same way that
It actually does.
education
Sport hyperoxygenates the brain and makes you smarter.
And sport encourages for society to function effectively. We want everybody to work together. That sport promotes that. Sport promotes teamwork, where science promotes individual research.
But science also
Teamwork.
science moves society forward.
Yeah.
Research and discoveries
Research.
improve technology and increase living standards.
One person's achievement is further. Like for example, the ANU became to the spotlight when we won a Nobel Prize. So it's all the investment. He was in fact reading that investment to the university is very less to the department. They don't have any equipment to do the research more. Whereas in sport industry, it's a group, they play a match, they get it, and the incentive they get is huge, and the other benefits they get.
That's right.
Well, I think like sport provides a lot of entertainment for people as well, and all the live broadcasts on TV, all those sort of things. Millions of people tune into those things every year, every week, whatever. And it unites the people in that sort of sense, but also it provides a lot of revenue because a lot of advertising that goes into that. It brings a lot of money to the economy because people are exposed to a lot more of these sort of things that they wouldn't be doing if they were just sitting studying textbooks all the time.
But does sport breed innovation? Does sport breed
There's no-
new
you
ideas?
don't have
We don't need
We're not
innovation.
proposing that everyone plays sport. We're proposing that like sport is allowed to continue.
You give so much money to sport, especially professional sport. Who needs professional sport? Why can't we just have community level sport? We don't have to fund that very much. A couple $1 million here and there, it's fine.
It's because it's not the community level sport that people really want to see. It's that cutting edge professional skill levels there.
But that cutting edge professional skill level stuff isn't encouraging people to be fit. It's encouraging people to sit on their couches and drink beer. And what's the
It
game?
inspires lots of young people to try their very hardest and to work towards a goal, a constructive outlet.
Because the media has given so much importance to the sports because they have a lot of funding, and if they build the exhibition center or in the school, they have equipment and they give that entertainment to the children. They're ready to do more. They're even ready to put a lot of effort to do some projects or something. But the basic thing is they don't have anything in their school if you take it at normal level. So you develop like if I've been to these schooling matters, the children come and they are as furious as their parents when they see the match. So the interest comes along because the parents go and the children learn from them. So the same thing if you do in the school, if you invest in the school department, if you give an opening for the children, they are interested. It's not like science is boring all the time.
Okay. I think that's probably enough of the debating, but this is an idea of sort of this is much more like a committee room in our youth parliament than the legislative assembly. The assembly is much rowdier. When you're actually sitting in the youth parliament, you kind of tend to yell at each other a lot. Especially things like, shame! But you do get to debate these kind of issues, and you get to debate them in a much more thorough and intellectual way than you do both at university, because you're kind of constrained to the confines of your course, and also as normal parliamentarians do, because they are obsessed by politics rather than by policy. The objective of one of the core objectives of the youth parliament is to bring young people together and create a voice from these disparate ideas, which we can then lobby for. So you can all come along, hopefully, on well, even if you don't sign up for the program, you can come along from June the 9th to the 13th. We'll be sitting in the Legislative Assembly and just have a look, see what happens. And if you do choose to sign up, you can go to ypact.org and fill in our sign up form under Get Involved, sign up. And hopefully, I'll see a few of you there.
Thank you.